there's no smoke behind you.
Yeah. I'm pretty low priority around the house here.
You sounded like you were in charge when you said you put them in stealth mode or whatever it was.
Yeah, wishful thinking.
If there are rafters in the background next time, I'll know where you've been placed.
We're live, guys.
We're live. All right. We're going to call the Wednesday, March 3rd Board of Education meeting back to order. Everyone, please silence your electronic devices, and we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge the
Allegiance
To the
flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible,
liberty and justice.
Justice for all.
Thank you. Additions and deletions to the agenda since Friday mailing.
Yes, we do, and we have a couple here. So we'll be adding to business consideration 6.10 will be the update to the instructional calendar to change the staff development date of Friday, March 12th. 6.11 will be the high risk sports resolution. I have two corrections to my my personnel considerations. The first 7.1 and 7.2 will just be to update the two bus monitors with their starting date of March 4th. Their fingerprints did clear. Additions to the agenda for personnel is 7.5 will be the resignation of the transportation director. 7.6 will be the hiring of a student and family support specialist. 7.7 will be the volunteer coaches. 7.8 will be a short-term substitute for special ed. 7.9 will be the 2020-21 coaching recommendations. 7.10 and 7.11 will be the resignation of an assistant JV girls soccer coach and an assistant JV boys soccer coach.
You're muted, Teddy.
Just checking, everybody. I need a motion for the additions and deletion. Mr. McFerrin, Mr. Hislop, all in favor? Aye. I need a motion for the acceptance of the minutes for the February 24th, 2021 meeting. Mr. McFerrin, Mr. Hislop, all in favor? Aye. And we have three presentations, and we will start with a report on Budget Advisory Committee meeting.
This is a really quick one. I just wanted to give you an update on the work that we did at our last meeting. We reviewed the feedback from the last thought exchange, which asked people who responded. I think there are about 190 responses to this one. They responded with, if you could change something about RCS, the program at RCS, what would you want to change? And I just want to show you the quick word cloud around that. Give me a second. There we go. Again, perhaps not things that would be really surprising to us. We expect that we want our kids to be able to explore the world and career opportunities, have access to colleges, and that we are creating and providing a diversified program so they can be provided with the things that they actually need, right? And we did a quick breakdown on the priorities around this, and life skills scored the highest ones. In other words, purposefully teaching our kids specific life skills. As a reminder for you folks, as you are on the Google Meet, if you cursor over the presentation, you click on the push pin, you will make the presentation full size. I know it's sometimes hard to read in the small format. But life skills was a very popular response, college and career exploration, internships, hands-on, and then a big drop down to the remainder of these. So as a group, we did some reflection on this and on our first thought exchange, which was around our skills that were most valuable that we learned when we left school. And that culminated in an opportunity to look at some of our budgetary allocations from last year. We looked at the 3-part budget and some of our revenues and expenditures from last year. As we go into next week, we'll really be talking about how we apply what we know into expenditures around program. What are our priorities? Where do we want our monies to be spent so that we're getting the best return on those? That is all. And those presentations are available on our website. The PowerPoints presentations are available on our website, along with the results of the thought exchange.
Okay. Next presentation is food service and transportation budgets.
All right, I'm going to share my screen, and I have to ask your apologies. I am not finalized with the cafeteria budget, Mr. Porter, and it's not Mr. Porter's fault, it's mine, and we'll be presenting that with the next budget meeting, our next meeting. So I apologize. Jason Symington is in the meeting. I've asked him to join us in case anybody has any questions about what you're going to see with the buses tonight, transportation in general. He may or may not, one of us will be able to answer those questions without a doubt. So I just wanted to let you know he's here. And I will now present my screen. And everybody see what I'm seeing? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, first of all, transportation expenditures. We're going to just go over a little comparison on where we are right now, what we're proposing for the 21-22 budget and what we have adopted in 2021. Right now, I have proposed a budget figure of $3,655,378, which is considerably lower than the adopted budget of 2021, the current year we sit in. It's a difference of $190,000. We're going to talk about what makes up that $190,000 as we go through the presentation. And as an overview and to give a little insight of some of the challenges that we've had in transportation this year, currently and ongoing, are staffing changes. We've recently just had the resignation of our director. We talked about in the last budget season that we were going to be hiring a head bus driver, and we did do that. Rhonda Bombard was one of our existing drivers with 10 years of experience. She joined the team. She is now a 19A certified examiner. She's passed the written test. She's passed the driving test, and she is working with all of our drivers right now. We have an interim transportation director that also has that background, and she's been helping her get up to par, up to speed, and how she's going to conduct these exams, written and in person. And it's really something that she's loving doing. She's really loving it, and Darcy loves having her there. The supervision of the mechanics when Mr. Keyser left has been filled by Jason Symington. He's been overseeing directly the 4 mechanics that we have. And again, that helps us with all of the district vehicles, not just buses. It's everything we own. He oversees with the mechanics and their responsibilities there. Continued driver shortages happens to be a problem. Again, I know we talked a little bit, every year we talk about this. It continues to be a problem. We're still looking at better ways for recruitment. I know we talked about media coverage. We're going to come up with something in a way to get our name out there to hire any position, whether it's a driver, non-instructional, instructional, coaching, O&M, operations, custodial worker. We're going to work on that. And then we still, no matter how hard we try, are still in a relatively heavy dependence on contract transportation. So it's one of the challenges, but we're getting through it. And just to give you an idea of the wages, this is the wages. Right now, you're going to see this is where the lion's share of the reductions come in. And I don't want anybody to panic, because the reduction in salary does reflect the current workforce. It does allow for additional drivers. If we get them back, not that many, but if we got so many back that we could negate a run, 2, 3, or 4 runs with Coxsackie, we can reallocate that funding into salaries if needed. And we're hoping that recruitment efforts are successful. We hope that every year. But I'd like to say we're going to have some positive things happening in that department in the next couple of years. some of the unknowns that are a real challenge to transportation are when we have a student that comes into our district that requires an outside placement, or if they are a child where he or she becomes homeless, the family becomes homeless, and we have an obligation to transport those students in this, whatever is in the best interest of the child. And sometimes that means we can be faced with, in a day's notice, having to transport a student up to 50 miles. That can be a challenge. So that's still going to remain a challenge. It's a challenge in every given year. And you see a little bit of an increase in the salary supervisor mechanics line, the top line at $42,988. That's because we have put all of the head bus driver in that. We have a portion of the supervising mechanic position in there, and we're making some assumptions based on what are we going to do when we apply and interview and hire a new director into that position. Again, there's a lot of numbers here. We're going to talk more about stuff in the next one. I have some nice pictures in this to not bore anybody, but I do want to show the numbers. We go through this 15 different ways in the budget season. You're going to see it again when we do the 3-part budget, but things are pretty status quo. We did make some reductions. I went back on previous spending. I looked at everything that we've spent in the last year, not using last year as a litmus test. I'm very comfortable reducing some of these expenditures, trying to bring our expenditures down. Equipment repair, you'll notice the third line down, it's down $22,000. Come down a little bit further, you're going to see that gasoline is down $25,000. Auto parts is down $16,000. One of the things that Mr. Symington's going to assist us in doing is really making our inventory system come to life. Those contract codes and areas are lower now because with the hard work of this board, we have a very aggressive, and I won't even say aggressive, but we have a steady bus replacement plan that has resulted in less spending in auto parts and in repairs. Again, we still do a lot of work on our own, and you're going to see some of the fruits of those labors later on in this presentation. But most of what we try to do is reduce expenditures wherever we could. Again, numbers. This is this portion of the transportation numbers. The budget is just garage and contract transportation. So we separate out garage from the driving piece, and there's no real change here. I could lower electricity by $2,000, but I don't see the need at this point in the ballgame. Contract transportation, where it has had significant increases in the last 3 years, we're going to hold at status quo right now. I'll be happy at some point in the ballgame when we get to either lower that and move it into salaries or lower it altogether. So, but we still need it, and we're going to leave it in the budget. Some of the information that you guys have asked for is trips and staffing information and some information on the buses. We're going to talk about that as well this evening. But right now, I wanted to give you an idea of where we were, the number
Joanne, quick. So contract transportation, we have staying even, but we're also cutting labor costs for drivers, correct? So do we anticipate less runs or less? I mean, usually one goes up, one goes down.
Keep in mind that when we have that higher salary figure in there, it's anticipation that we have everybody back that we have. So I have everybody we have right now, plus I'm allowing for additional drivers. And if we do not need contract transportation as much, we'll be okay if everything stays status quo. If we hire back 6 drivers, I'm obviously not going to need all of those runs at Coxsackie. We're going to take some of that back. And with that would be the money would get moved from contract transportation to driver salaries. I'm not worried at this point about being short dollars. I don't want to account for it if we have a full staff. We don't. And again, we can reallocate those funds. But currently right now, in our district that our own staff is doing, we have 4 out-of-district runs, 24 in-district runs. We have 29 permanent drivers right now and 9 bus attendants. Contracted runs, we have 14. But prior to the pandemic, we had an additional 18 midday runs. I wanted everybody to see that, what the differences are right now. 2 mechanic helpers and 6 late runs, 4 homework club runs at the elementary school. There's 2 nights a week at the elementary schools. If we come back, if we were to come back in full swing in a couple of weeks, it'd take us a couple of weeks to organize it, but right now we could still do it. Still might have a problem with 10th period transportation, but I wanted to show you what our staffing level needs are right this minute.
So Joanne,
Tracy, you just muted.
I said it's 18 in addition to the 14?
No, that they would, the work of the existing staff would do that.
Got it.
Our staff would take that in 18 midday runs, 2 mechanic helpers if we needed them, and I don't think we would in the late runs and homework runs.
Got it.
So, and here we are with the bus replacement program. I know you guys asked me a little bit more questions about that, in-depth questions, and I'm going to answer those as we go through this presentation today. Please feel free. Jason's listening. He can jump in at any time if we have questions. But right now, we are going to ask our voters to approve 65 passenger buses. They're Bluebird, Vision, they're gas buses this year. And you're going to ask me why. We're going to talk about that in a couple slides. The cost per bus is $114,000, and again, it's $458,000 in total. And that has such a wonderful impact on our borrowing schedule. I can't wait to show it to you because it's really, I keep talking year after year. If we stay steady, hold the course, things will start to even out and come down. And that's exactly what's happening. Your dedication to making sure we have buses that are 10 years old or newer, hopefully not much over 10 if that's the case. We look at buses when they hit over 100,000 miles. We really want to trade them in when they get to 150. But that's what we're looking at. And that's a criteria. We put that in place. I think the year before I came, we had quite a few buses, and we've been buying between 6 and 8 to 9 vehicles every year I've been here. So let's take a look at that. And again, one of the benefits for that we get on a plan is it allows us to avoid spikes in the debt.
Hey, Joanne.
Yes, sir.
Are you looking at this year how buses have changed, that we actually may use them a little bit less this year and it may help prolong some of the life of the current fleet a little bit? You looking at that too?
Yeah, we have. Jason, I don't know if you have any information on that. I'm going to show you slides with how many miles we have on our buses and after this one. So you'll kind of see. I don't know. I have not compared total miles the current year, total miles last year comparatively to 18-19, but I could get that. I did not compare that though, Bill.
I would say this year we're very heavy on the full size buses, just because of spacing. We can only have like 11 on there. So a lot of times the mid-sized buses were sitting this year.
Okay.
So we got a lot less miles on those this year.
So I think we just need to, as we go out with a bus proposal, just be prepared to answer questions like that, because there may be questions from the public about why would we buy 4 new buses in a year that, and there's valid reasons. It's just having that information handy.
Good thought, Bill. And again, right now you can kind of see every year I'm going to update slides like this. We started in 2016-17, and I gave you the debt that was a result of that and how many vehicles we had purchased. And again, what the voters approve, if they were to approve this in May, we wouldn't pay for these buses until the next school year, 22-23 again. But you're going to see we started relatively low in our debt payment, and then we went up to 539, we went up to 619, 831, and now we're coming back down because now we've remained consistent in what we're buying and tried to level off the debt. So as we continue to do it, I hope we won't have to buy as many. I think we've gotten to a good place. You'll see some of that after this. But Mr. Symington gave us a kind of like a rundown on what's the difference? Why would we choose a diesel bus versus a gasoline bus versus a propane bus? And again, each one of them has their selling points, their pros and cons, but I just wanted to list some of the things that make it why we'd want diesel, why we want gasoline, or why would we want propane. And take a look at some of that. Propane becomes a challenge, not where we love propane because it's clean. But again, it can be very costly to fix. Very often we have to send those vehicles out to be serviced because we can't do it internally because it's propane. You do a lot with burning things off. Jason was explaining it to me and I said, okay, I've learned enough. I'm good. But
yeah, if you guys have any specific questions, feel free to ask.
And then I wanted to give you an idea of how many buses we had of each type. And you got to see in our diesel bus fleet, we have 17 buses. The average miles for those buses is just over 40,000. And again, you have the oldest bus at 2017, the newest at 2020. When we register vehicles, I found this out today through Jason, we register them as how many adults can they fit? Isn't that kind of crazy? And then we translate it. So what you see there is 28 is really a 44. It's 28 adults, 44 kids. And a 43 passenger is 43 adults and 66 children. I didn't know that until today. So there you go.
But
to give you an idea.
We have to offset that though for distancing, right?
Yep, you'll see that in the next slide.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead. No, what do you got, Teddy?
What buses are we replacing?
We are replacing 4 diesel buses. Am I correct, Jason?
That's correct. Yep.
So wait, we're buying 4 diesel buses, correct?
No, we're getting rid of. So the 4 I'm proposing are 2009, and they're 4 full-size 66 passenger diesel buses.
So right. So my question is, are we getting rid of 4 of these diesels, or are we getting rid of 4 other buses types? Are we getting rid of 4 gas, 4 propane? Or are we not getting rid of any buses?
We're getting rid of 4 diesel buses.
Joanne, is there another page?
Yes, we're going to go through that too. You'll see this is only the diesel fleet, but Jason, correct me if I'm wrong. We're replacing them with gasoline fueled buses.
That's correct.
So we're getting rid of buses that are only 3 years old?
No,
they're
the buses,
2009.
let me be clear. The buses that we are getting rid of, I have not listed here. This is what we're keeping.
All right. That's where I'm confused.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out which buses we're getting rid of here. And I'm like, the oldest one's 2017, but there's another.
If you give me 2 seconds when we're done with this, I'll tell you the mileage on each one of the buses we're going to get rid of and the year, if you'd like. I have it.
Yeah, I just was curious on how old they were. 2009.
Yeah. So now when you look at the propane buses, we have 23 propane buses. The average miles are 71. Again, we're getting some up there. And again, the oldest buses in this fleet are 2013. The newest ones are 2021. Again, I gave you the capacity there so you know, but 3 of these buses are wheelchair equipped, so they don't hold the full number of children or adults, actually, for that matter. Again, you'll see the 3 of them in 2021, very small miles. We have a little ways to go. I don't know if Jason has given any thought with the mechanics as to what we'd replace next year. Again, it will be based on mileage in years of how old the buses are.
Right.
What's the average miles we put on a year on some of these buses? I know it varies quite a bit, but like some of these propane buses, you've got quite a few over 100,000. So
it does. Yeah. Like the propanes are going to be lower mileage because you can't, they just have limited range. So you're not going to take them for the big, long field trips and sports trips. So they're going to be a lot lower. I don't know. You could probably range from anywhere from, 8,000 to maybe up to, 15, 20,000 for the longer runs.
Okay. So high probability we'll have to replace some of these propane buses then next year.
Yeah, and we can look at that too. That can be something we look at throughout the year, Jason. But the sad part is I'm not going to use 1920 as my litmus test either because we didn't drive in March to June. So we lost a little bit of good data.
Yvonne has a question. Just as a reminder to people who haven't been through the glories of talking about buses before, we compare the mileage on some of these large really industrially designed heavy equipment. It looks like 100,000 miles shouldn't be anything. We see tractor trailers with 1 million miles on them. And of course, the difference is the buses are stopping every quarter mile or half mile, 3/4 of a mile. They get a lot more wear and tear in their within the same amount of mileage that they're putting on. So it means a lot of brake repairs, transmission repairs, engine repairs, tire replacements, those things that wouldn't necessarily happen on a more industrial vehicle that has the same type of materials that make it. Yvonne, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm seeing that we use 3 different types of fuel for our buses. Is there a reason why we choose the types that we do? Is it because of what's available or something different? And are we planning in the future to switch over to all one type?
No, you're gonna wanna keep a balanced fuel type. Like I said, propane, you're limited on range. You can't even get a larger tank on even our big buses. You can't get a big tank on there. Whereas gas and diesel, you can. If we were trading the buses in every 5 years or so, diesel would probably be the way to go. It's just once you get out of that warranty, everything becomes so expensive. Like the diesel, all the emission stuff, particulate filters, diesel exhaust fluid parts, all the sensors. And gas is recently just coming back because of that, because everything is expensive on diesels, and propane is limited. It's clean, I'll give it that, but it is limited. So you want to take a balanced approach on it.
I'm really appreciative. Oh, go ahead, Joanne.
Well, I would also say, Yvonne, just so you know that we still get a very high rebate on all of our propane. So we get approximately 50% rebate on what we use in propane. So it works out well for us. There's no guarantee. We thought that was going to end this year, but it didn't. We got it again this year. But unfortunately, we didn't have as much of an expense. So again, we can't use the propane buses to go long distances. So we do like to have a certain number of each.
I'm really appreciative that in the presentation that you and Jason, actually, we had the side-by-side of the pros and cons of the three. I think that's the first time that we've been able to see that visually. We didn't some folks may not have had enough time to read through all of it, but they really do each have their own uses. Also, we've really, in all honesty, we've invested a significant amount in the infrastructure to support all three. We have the three different fueling stations on site, and they're relatively new and in excellent condition. So, the infrastructure is another key component to that. And through the construction project, I think phase one, we did a good job of making sure that we had ready access to those things.
And I'm going to show you some pictures of some of the things that Jason, Bill, and the mechanics have accomplished this year. Because let me tell you, they asked me, Bill and Jason said to me, they don't want to trade any of the buses in because, to be honest with you, they offered us $1,500 a bus or $1,300 a bus. We're trading in 4. We're going to keep those, and we might sell them on Auctions International and ask the board to get rid of them. Or Jason has plans to take parts off them if we need them for other buses and stuff like that. So I'm like, yes, I love it. So Jason, I don't know if you want to tell people what you've done here. I just think it's great.
Well, this here is actually a retired wheelchair bus that over the wintertime and when we were closed, James, one of the mechanics, along with the other mechanics, we chopped off the back of it. That is the back, moved it all the way up to the front so we could actually haul the salt. So it's pretty cool. We don't have really any money into it, so to speak.
That's the Frankenstein bus we were talking about a long time ago. That's a pandemic bus if I ever saw one. That's awesome.
I do give this group a lot of credit. We asked Jason and, to make sure the guys had stuff to do over the winter, and boy, did they stay busy. So look at this. Where were these bleachers originally? Jason, do you remember?
We dragged them out they were basically in the woods, in the weeds.
So they brought them in.
Yep. The guys cleaned them all up. We're going to put them out by the fields in the spring and, trying to revive them.
I think they look great. So these are some of the lights that we got out. That's been one of the concerns, that because our buses are not secured with high fences, we did do better lighting. And I just wanted you to see a piece of this. Jason, I believe that you and your crew did the guardrail too. Am I correct?
Yes. Yep. Painted all the way up and down the road. Pretty sure it was the very hottest day of the year that we did that.
That hadn't been done in 30 years.
Yep.
Now, Jason, I'm going to tell you, you can tell everybody about this one as well.
So we have a new snow blower machine, and we were looking at getting an enclosed trailer, which is, lots of money because it had to be customized, extra height and some other modifications. So I knew we had an old landscape trailer sitting back there. So I was like, we got the plywood sitting in the shed. Why don't we make an enclosed trailer ourselves, So here she is. Works great. And we already had everything. Again, not really any money spent.
Great job. Great innovation right there. Great job.
Isn't it?
Thanks.
Big
And then
RCS
again,
need a big RCS logo on it, right?
yeah, there you go. We'll do that. That's a good idea, Jason. Small things, right? And again, I wanted you to see the lights coming this direction too, coming away from the bus garage. They are new lights. They are definitely better. It helps to see everything out there, especially in the morning and at night.
How about cameras out there, Joanne? The lights look great. We have cameras now as well.
We have some cameras too. I want you to know that we have cameras that we can see all of the front of this. We don't have enough cameras out in the back, the ones for the buses that are up there, but we do have them out here. Yes.
Good.
Yep. And that's all. Anybody have any questions? Any other comments? Jason's done an outstanding job. We're so fortunate to have him. Those guys do a lot of work.
Off to good work.
I agree. That is a lot of good work. The only question I had is, do we have more buses or older buses than what we showed? Or is that where we're at as far as years and age-wise with getting rid of buses?
What you've seen right there is what we have. We don't have older buses or anything. I did not show you the 4 we're getting rid of. But
Okay.
what you see is what we have.
So after we buy these 4 buses, our oldest bus should be 2013, 2012?
Correct.
13, correct. Yep.
2013.
Oh, gosh. It's taken us like 8 years to get to that point.
But you know what? We did it though. And
That's
now
good.
if we have a couple of years with less mileage and we stick to 4 buses and we keep that at less than $500,000, we divide it by 5, we can steady that debt right out and it'll be lower than it's been in quite a while. So it's really, and it's not that I want to say anything negative, but if there's a switch to get rid of that services aid for transportation, expenditure driven aids, that can have a negative impact on this and, and how the aid's paid on transportation. So just wanted to share that as well.
All right.
Thank you very much, Jason.
Very good. That's very good. Thank you, Jason.
Thanks.
Good job.
Joanne,
Yeah.
I don't know if it would be in this area or if you have a different presentation about like M&O, but what's the status of our solar panels on top of the roofs? Are they still activated? Are we getting any type of benefit or payment from those?
We pay for them, if you want to know. But yes, we do. It does offset the cost of our electricity. Bill Schramm and I are looking at that right now to do an in-depth process. And we can make that part of the O&M presentation when we do it or shortly thereafter. But yes, they are on the roofs. Yes, they are still working. Yes, they cost us a lot of money, actually. But we do get money. It does offset our bill. And I can get you some of the details on that. We can talk about that in more detail. I don't have it with me, though.
Yeah, I think that's good. And even maybe we want to put a presentation like that in like new business or something or old business and maybe even keep it out of budget or the O&M budget because it may take you more time. But I think we should keep that as a whole topic, Tina. That's a good conversation, I think, for a separate presentation.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So will you add that to old business so that we know to come back to it? She was going to say yes. She just unmuted herself.
So
I got it.
All right. We can move on to the high-risk sports presentation.
I know that one of the things that the board and the community is wondering is what lessons have we learned? It's hard to believe. It's been 2.5 weeks. It's more than halfway through the winter season for the high-risk sports, although the other high-risk sports, the bowling has already ended and swimming is about to wrap up. So even though they've been going much longer. So it's amazing to think of what's just happened in the last 2.5 weeks. And the board graciously allowed us to enter the arena for high-risk sports. So I invited Bob to join us. He's there at the wrestling match, and he's checked people in, and now he's on the call with us. But I want to go through like some of the things that overarching that we know that we've learned through the high risk process in the last 2.5 weeks. And then I certainly want to open up to the board to ask questions, especially about transition. I know that there's a lot of concern by families about how we will successfully transition between winter and fall 2, where we've got multiple seasoned children who will be involved in both sports for a span of time. How we'll help the students acclimate to that change, and also how we'll help utilize our facilities through that change. So the first thing I got to say through what we have learned is we set forth all these plans about how we would take attendance at practices and games, and the coaches have kind of streamlined the process, and they're using the attestation as a means of taking attendance for our students. And what they do is they collect them at each practice and game, and then they place them in a 3-room binder. So in the event that we have to trace, we have all the information in one place. And the AD has collected attestations for any other attendees, such as officials, essential personnel. And in this last case, last night was our senior night for the girls basketball, collecting them from the senior parents who come in. We had some discussion about ball sanitization, at least in basketball, and because the initial plan said the ball would be sanitized every time there's a timeout, we recognized that a 30-second timeout wasn't enough time because officials had to be watching the players to ensure that there wasn't any switching of players. So we changed that in our newly approved plan that Dr. Lemons approved this past Monday, that any timeouts that are longer than 1 minute, the ball would be sanitized, and they've been doing that on the court. We developed a solid plan for the rotation and sanitizing of the anklets for the wrestlers during matches. We only have a couple sets of these identifying anklets that are used by wrestlers during competition. And we are initially limiting any additional staff in the game area. And what we recognized is it's really been the coaches and Bob who's trying to manage the students, the officials, gameplay, people entering and exiting, attestations, sanitation, all that stuff, is that we know we need to include paid chaperones in that process as well. They can assist us with the COVID entry protocols and help to monitor the doors to ensure that we don't have people who are wandering in or they're spectators or other issues. We've created a map to assist players, teams, and officials in finding where they're actually supposed to go to the main gym. We've had people dropping off everywhere because of what we've done in the past. They've been dropping off at the pool in the front of the building, and Bob will be ensuring that people get the communication that they need. Bob and the coaches have been working to set up and break down the seating and the equipment each night because they take that role very seriously. We're going to be looping in the custodial staff to assist with that and the sanitizing, so that our coaches can focus on the work with their teams. That's the work they're supposed to be doing. And we know that the cleaning staff definitely has the best equipment and the best skills around sanitizing equipment anyway. You know, PE uses these facilities every day. So we have our games at night, PE during the day. So it's basically a set change. All that stuff goes out at night, goes back at night. They do PE during the day, and then, you know, things repeat. Entering fall 2, we know we'll be creating a list of essential personnel who will be present at each type of event. So we know that football has very different needs than basketball did. We know that we may need someone running the chains, we need someone in the scorebook, we need someone at the gate, we need the coaches, the assistant coaches, and the officials. Bob and I were talking today, and we decided that like having a standard list of the essential personnel who will be present allows us to, as for instance, last night, we had some media present or some photographers present. They can only be present with the approval of us. The AD has to know that these additional personnel are going to be there for some reason, and we have to ensure that they've done the attestation, they've gotten their temperature checks, and that they know what the expectations are while they're there. And lastly, we love the huddle camera in the main gym. We know that we want those cameras everywhere in the district because they're fantastic, other than when they follow balloons. We've been looking into how we can apply them in other places in the district, outdoor fields, etc. So that encapsulates the things that we've learned just in the last 2.5 weeks. I know that we want to talk through what the potential is for us to be able to move forward in fall 2 and what the impacts might be. So questions about the processes so far before we go into the transition?
I have one. I know that part of the deal is that all the kids are supposed to be wearing masks while they're playing. But what about the other team? Because at last night's game, the masks were down around the chins and nobody stopped it. Nobody said anything. It doesn't help us if only half the people are wearing masks.
That's funny. Joanne and I debriefed this morning. She was there at the last night's games, and Bob's been very cognizant of like what's been happening on the court. And in our plan, and it's true at most districts, the officials are not responsible for that component. So I don't know what discussion the sections have. Bob can probably speak to that about how we enforce that, because you're right, different teams have different approaches, and then of course they're causing exposure.
Yeah, the plan is that the coaches from each team are supposed to monitor their kids, not the officials, not the opposing coaches, not the opposing ADs. The homeschool AD ultimately has the right to stop the game and say, hey, you're not wearing your mask properly. If you don't wear your mask properly, you're going to have to be removed from the gym. You hope it doesn't get to that point. I agree, Bray. The one girl, number 11, had her mask below her nose for a better part of 3/4 of that game. And, that's something that I'll address again tomorrow when we meet as ADs. That needs to be enforced by the coaches. Our coaches, I think, have done a very good job, both home and away, of enforcing the mask policy and policing our kids. And that's kind of the way it's supposed to work, because they're the board appointed people who are supervising their student athletes. I'm not board appointed to oversee the student athletes from Chalmont. I certainly can go say something to their coach, but it has to come from their coach for them to correct the behavior.
Yeah, that all makes sense. And I think ours have done a great job. They all had their masks on the right way the whole game. I just wonder if maybe something should have been said to the coach during the game. Hey, listen, you kids got to pull their masks up, because the few parents that were there were not happy, and there weren't a whole lot of us there. We were doing the right thing. Our kids were doing the right thing. Our coaches were doing the right thing. That coach chose not to. And other than stopping the game, or at the very least saying something to him, I don't know what else we do, but that's not okay.
Bob, do you have a meeting with the ADs tomorrow?
I do.
Yeah, and I was just thinking that when we're watching on the camera, that excellent camera, you can't necessarily see whether it's above the nose or below the nose, right? So being in person, you definitely be able to see that.
I have a little comment. I heard what you just said about how the officials are not responsible for monitoring the mask wearing. My husband actually does the manual videoing of games at Troy City Schools. And he's been doing it for the last 2 weeks. And he said that their officials will call a technical on kids who don't wear masks. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they have like a different system or if there's something that the school has asked the officials to do, but I just thought I'd throw it out there.
Yeah, that would be unusual. It may be something that Troy is in the big, Troy's in the suburban council, sorry. Almost said the Big Ten, which was abolished years ago, but they may have something where they've asked officials to that are covering their games to enforce a policy like that. But the hard part about that is the officials are under contract, and part of the contract negotiations during COVID was they did not want to be responsible for enforcing COVID policy. So, that may have been a technical on a kid for another reason. He swore while his mask was down, and it appeared as
It's an established rule that is announced before the games to both teams.
I will certainly, I'll reach out to Paul Reinish, who's the AD at Troy, and find out exactly how they're enforcing that policy.
What other questions?
Hey, Bob, this is Bill. I just have a general question. I know that we do league games. And I know that you explained what the Colonial Council was going to do and how they were going to take safety for the high risk winter sports. When we're scheduling games that are non-league, that are outside of our own Colonial Council, do you have an opportunity to discuss with the other ADs what their rules are? I know that, and my example would be Burn Knox. Burn Knox allowed spectators in before one of the girls' games, and in fact, their coach was eating on the sideline. Seems to be different than what we would do. Just didn't know if you had an opportunity to talk to the ADs as these things are getting scheduled to see what their what their rules are and whether or not it aligns with what we're trying to do.
Yep. I've been in contact with all of the ADs of the non-league games that we scheduled. Those games became necessary because based on sheer numbers, only 4 Colonial Council schools were playing JV girls basketball. And we lost a couple of our games because Albany County came below the 4% threshold after some of the other counties did. So we scheduled a couple non-league games to try and recoup some of those games that we're allowed to play. Burnt Knox Westerlo. I heard that Burnt Knox Westerlo had fans there as well. After the fact, I called Tom Gavin and asked him about that because we had talked before. He said that they weren't allowing spectators. He told me that the girls varsity played before our JV, and their COVID plan has the girls waiting in the bleachers on the opposite side of the court from the players until their rides show up. I don't know about eating in the gym. We're not eating in the gym because we don't have a concession stand and any way to get food in there. But their spectator policy was exactly the same as ours. Their mask policy was the same as ours, and the other schools that we were scheduled to play against have similar or exactly the same COVID protocols in place for those non-league games as well.
Thanks for the answer. I wasn't sure what it was. I figured you had, but I just wanted to make sure, given the fact that we're trying to take extreme protocols when we can.
Yep. I spoke with him ahead of time, and then I spoke with him afterwards after hearing that there were spectators through the grapevine at Burn Knox, and he clarified what happened and how it fit within their COVID plan.
So a couple questions I have. First is, how are we going to handle, like for football, parents parking in the parking lot and sitting outside of the fence, outside of the track area, and trying to watch the games? Because I know that could be a potential issue.
Can I talk about that, Bob?
Sure.
Yeah, Bob and I talked about that 3 weeks ago and actually today again. What we believed is our priority is to keep our players and our employees safe, the ones that are involved in the gameplay. And that one of the things that we feel pretty confident about is ensuring that area where play is occurring is completely free from any spectators. So if that means that we won't be able to use the bleachers, or won't be able to use the track, or won't be able to use the field, we're going to, if there's not a natural boundary already in place, such as a fence, then we'll put in an artificial boundary, which is posts and a rope, or posts and a tape, to keep anybody who's on our campus away from our players and our staff. I think that I really do think that we will drive ourselves absolutely nuts, and we'll need help from Albany County Sheriff and the Coeymans PD and 85 chaperones if we try and chase people off of 101 9W around the track. So what our stand is going to be is that in this instance, we're in indoor facilities. We have absolute control over what happens in our indoor facilities. When we go outside, we will control the boundaries around our players and our staff to ensure that they're safe. We're going to discourage congregating. We're going to encourage all types of social distancing and mask wearing, which we expect for anyone who's on our school grounds. But I don't think it's in our best interest to police people from standing on 9W or outside of a fence or up on 101. We're going to protect our players. That's our priority.
Okay, that sounds good. Like we have a plan. Next question is, so soccer's a moderate risk sport. Do we have any kind of rules, regulations when it comes to that as far as spectators? I don't know what the rules are.
Spectators, the NISFA guidelines on spectators allow for 2 spectators per student athlete, even for indoor sports. Our league voted against that because of the fact it was indoor sport, because of the fact we were just getting started. It was a shortened season, and we thought we could do the live streaming and do that relatively efficiently across the league. Obviously, there have been some glitches because of schools' programs and policies and people having to buy subscriptions. But for the most part, I think that has gone okay. And I think it was a good idea to keep spectators out of the gym for this season. As we move outside, that's where it's going to become a little bit more of an issue. And that's going to be one of the top items on our agenda tomorrow, to discuss how we deal with that as a league. And obviously, it's going to come down to a plan for each school, because each school's campus is a little bit different.
So,
Hey,
and
Bob,
I think,
did you see that the governor just came out and said on March 22nd for outdoor non-residential events, you can have up to 200 people now?
Yeah, I don't think the NISFA guidelines have changed. I'm a little leery about that. The numbers seem to be tending in the right direction. I know there's a push with some of the ADs in Section 2, not necessarily from the Colonial and talking with them, but other leagues would really like to see us just open back up and go to normal, not even limit it to 2, but limit capacity in the we'll call it the stadium, but the fenced in areas that you can control. I don't think that's a good idea. I think that since things are trending in the right direction, we should probably stick with the guidelines that are in place. If we allow spectators outside in our fenced-in stadium area, we would allow 2 per student athlete. We would have a sign-in sheet and people checking them in as they come. And, we're going to encourage them to sit socially distanced. We're going to encourage them to sit with their family. We're going to encourage them to wear masks. But again, it's going to be one of those things that's somewhat impossible to tell who's who and who's supposed to be with who, especially with fans from the other team sitting on the other side of the, on the visitor side that we don't know, or, that our chaperones may not know. So there are challenges and things that we're going to have to overcome when we meet tomorrow. I don't know ultimately what we'll do. I do know right now the Colonial Council plan says no spectators at any high-risk sports until we come to till we address the issue at a more appropriate date and come to a consensus on how it will be done.
I would recommend also, I think that it makes sense for us to stand by spectators at high-risk sports versus medium risk or low risk. I think we should stand by the same protocol for each. Because in all honesty, the high risk is about the players and their interactions. It's not about a spectator standing 50 yards away. But I will say, just as Bill mentioned, the governor just came out with the new ruling about outdoor activities. We do anticipate in the next 2 to 3 weeks, the governor and the Department of Health will come out with updated guidance around social gatherings, around things like proms and graduations. And that'll include what we are capable of doing inside and outside of our schools. So in not that long a time, we very well may reconsider how we're able to allow people in. But as I said, I think it's just about establishing a perimeter and then, encouraging people to make good choices when they're outside of our boundary while we're participating in these sports. So I know you're asking specifically about high risk and spectators, but we're going to follow that same protocol for all of our sports right now because it's about protecting our players.
So we're not going to do the moderate risk. We're not allowing people in, or we are.
I think you said we're going to follow whatever plan we have in place for high risk sports inside and outside. They'll be consistent. So if we have no spectators inside, it'll be consistent for any high risk sports that are inside. If we allow spectators outside, but these are the protocols we're going to follow, it'll be the same for all of the sports. It doesn't matter if it's a high-risk sport or a moderate-risk sport. How we treat the spectators and the protocols we expect from them should be consistent across the board.
Right. So we're not allowing spectators for high risk outside, and we're not going to allow them for moderate either, or we are going to?
Listen, our priority, in all honesty, is to be able to allow our families to be able to watch their kids play. That's where we want to go. And the discussion at the Colonial Council tomorrow will really help drive that, help make our decision around that. Because think about the ramifications of this. And again,
I just want yes or no. I don't like. I want to. Did they allow it in the fall? Or are they not allowing it now, or is it still a discussion that has to be made with the council?
We only had low risk sports in the fall, so we only had golf and we had tennis. We did allow spectators at tennis. We did have a sign-in sheet for each team's roster for contract tracing purposes. A chaperone was there signing in spectators as they came in. So in other words, the two people came up to the table. I'm with Allison Smith. My name is Bill Smith. My name is Mary Smith. We wrote their names in there. And that was how we took attendance and had kept contract tracing for any of our home tennis matches. That gets a little bit more complicated when you start talking about soccer and football. They're a little bit bigger teams, 2 guests per student. But I think we can do it. And I think that that's the plan that we're looking at tomorrow and just trying to make sure that we're doing it the right way. We're trying to be consistent among the 12 Colonial Council schools. Before we make some kind of announcement, we want to make sure we have our ducks in a row, and that's what tomorrow's meeting will involve.
Even though it's a hassle, Teddy, I want you to know we want our families to be able to be there.
I'm fine with all that. I guess my other thing, do we even need to do contact tracing if they're outside like that? Obviously, if they're outside the fences, we're not going to be doing contact tracing. So, do we even need to do contact tracing if they're on bleachers and spread out? Or I don't know if that comes from the Department of Health or the state or the council. Does it even need to be done, Bob, I guess?
Remember when we did this in the fall? Everything was traced. Every solitary move that we made was traced. Nobody touched the same piece of paper. We were so conscientious and cautious. The rules have changed significantly and the expectations have changed significantly. So it's a really good point, Teddy. I think, and that's the discussion I'll be having tomorrow as well. We're outside. If we mark out on bleachers where people can sit, or we mark out along a fence where people can put their chairs, if they're not near each other, we've accomplished everything the Department of Health would want from us. Right. The only thing that we have to be cognizant of, and I know, Tina, your hand was raised a moment ago. The only thing we have to be cognizant of is, are there any other overarching Department of Health guidelines that would prevent us from bringing together too large a group? Like, think of a Friday night football game. That is well over the numbers that we would ordinarily, be allowed to have.
Yeah, I only asked because last fall, you were allowed to play baseball. You were allowed to play other sports, and those regulations, you didn't have to do contact tracing. You're outside, and so let's not go through it if we don't have to. But
Teddy, that's an excellent point, and that has been part of our conversations. Obviously, we're under the guidelines of the school district, the Board of Education approval, the district administration approval. So we may be holding ourselves to a higher standard than the, Bethlehem Soccer Club or the RCSU Soccer Club or whatever other organization is conducting those sports. So right. That's a great point. I don't know, do we have to trace people that are outside and socially distant and not within 6 feet of each other for 15 minutes? I don't know. I hope to get some answers on that tomorrow as we go through. I know the league president was trying to gather data from the other leagues and see how they were going to handle it so that we could, not reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, do you know how'd they do it in the fall with Suburban still played in the fall, right?
Yep. They allowed 2 spectators per student. They gave each student athlete 2 passes, whichever guest they wanted. Those people had to show that laminated guest pass at the gate, their sign-in table, sign in, and then they were allowed inside the fenced-in areas. They also complained that, they ran cross-country. They had people congregate by the finish line, but most people knew they weren't going to be allowed to congregate, so they spread themselves all over the 3.1-mile course and watched a couple of minutes and then trucked themselves to a new area to catch them on the next leg of the course. So we'll put a plan together, and somebody will inevitably find a loophole that we'll have to address after it happens. But, it'll be a plan in place, and it'll hopefully be fluid and we can make some common sense adjustments as we move forward and get more guidance from Albany County Department of Health.
Okay.
Tina, do you still have a question?
No, actually, when you guys, I know I'm raising hands, I'm dropping hands. No, if you went on with that conversation with the outdoor part, it settled everything I had in my mind.
Hey, Brian, can I ask one thing? When you guys talk to the council tomorrow, one of the things that I noticed with our senior, we've had one senior night, I think, so far, and we had 4 families there. Obviously, we have enough space that potentially we could have at least expanded a little bit. The thing that I worry about is we're saying that it's parents. There are grandparents, too, that have also been supporting these children through their activities for years and years and years. If we could just discuss it at the council level, see what they think. I'm not saying explosion, but I don't want to leave grandparents out of things. I don't have any senior children this year, but I could only imagine having to have that conversation with a parent or a grandparent.
And we don't want to do, as ADs, we don't want to do that either. We're trying to follow the guidelines. We're very much trying to get this high-risk sport started and off the ground. I think we could come up with a reasonable plan as a league and a district. We're kind of feeling our way through the water right now, wondering what you guys would be comfortable with and what you would approve. I know it was terrible last night that the grandparents of some of those girls are at every single game up until this year. And on senior night, they're unable to attend because the guidance right now says 2 guests per student athlete. I'd love to change that. We could certainly social distance. The biggest number of seniors we have is wrestling. There's 5 of them. That would be 10 guests. I really feel like we could socially distance up to 20 and make it work in that area of the gym safely. But I'm going to follow the plan until you guys tell me that you want me to pursue something differently, and then I can bring it back to the league and ask them if this is something that we can consider. And for example, we played Chalmont the other night, the boys, and their AD contacted me to tell me one of their student athletes was 8 points away from 1,000. And he asked if that kid could have his parents at the game for the night. It wasn't their senior night, so there shouldn't have been spectators, but he called to ask if the parents could be there to see their son score his 1,000th point, and they could have a quick celebration before they continued the game. And of course, I gave the okay for that. But, those are the kinds of things that you can't really plan for in your COVID plan. They kind of come up and you try to make common sense decisions and move forward.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Okay.
Tina, your hand's up. Do you really have a question?
No, I just like to leave some. Yeah, it's a little pantomime going on. Don't worry about it.
If nobody else has any questions about this high-risk sports before Mr. Dorrance leaves, I want to ask him the questions about the hiring process, just so he doesn't have to stay on here for 20 more minutes until we have the discussion on the thing. Is everybody else good?
I think it would be actually valuable for us to just have a quick conversation about transition, because we have overlap between the 2 seasons. And I know that we have concern about student health, athlete health, and about facilities usage. So just to talk about some of we can start with facilities. That's, I was going to say that's an easy one, but thank goodness Bob's a math teacher, because he's basically solving the most complex Rubik's Cube ever created, because he's trying to figure out how to do everything that we need to do in this limited spaces that we have. We have furniture and all kinds of crazy stuff in our athletic facilities right now, and it's still snowing and 5 degrees and 50 degrees. So facilities usage, Bob?
Yeah. Obviously, I believe, unless some freaky snowstorm hits in the next couple of days, knock on wood, the turf field is going to be available. I'm meeting with the soccer coaches tomorrow, and I'll represent the football program, and we will try and put together a rotating schedule for 3 to 5 practice, 5 to 7 practice. We may even go 1.5-hour blocks and try to fit 3 of them in there so we could have boys and girls soccer separate on certain days. the tricky thing is that last week, and this is not unique. We've had it happen in the past where a team has gone deep into sectional play or into state play, and the next season has started, and we've had to navigate that overlap with our student athletes. The coaches have been very good about communicating. I know I've already had a discussion just this afternoon with Justin Schipano. He's got 12 wrestlers that are also signed up to play football. We had to talk about what the regulation, how the regulations read. They can go to wrestling practice and count it towards a football practice that day, so they don't have to do double duty. This is the strange part. If they have a wrestling match on Wednesday night, they have to go to football practice for a certain period of time and do sport-specific drills because their wrestling match will not count as a practice. So on a day that we would want them to be resting up, we have to put them through a light skill and drill session so that their practice can count towards the minimum, and then send them away after 45 minutes to get their bus for the wrestling match or go home to eat before they come back for their wrestling match. So it's those little logistical juggling of athletes that we're going to have to deal with. The facilities, I don't think are going to be a problem with the turf. A matter of fact, local high schools around us are beating my door down and would like to rent our field even from 7 to 9 or 8 to 10 to use the turf. Bethlehem High School reached out to me last week and told me if we have any turf time available before 10 o'clock, they would be willing to rent it, because right now their plan is to travel to Albany High 5 days a week for practice from 7 to 9. So the turf time is going to be very valuable, and it's, having it here is a huge benefit to us. We're not going Bill Schramm and his staff did a great job of clearing the grass fields to help expedite the drying process to get the snow off of them already. So like at my house, I still have 6 inches of snow on the ground. A certain number of our fields here have been cleared by Bill. And now if we get a little patch of warm, dry weather, maybe those fields will dry up a little quicker and we'll be able to access the grass fields for additional practice space in a more timely manner. I kind of anticipate the first couple of weeks are going to be primarily on turf, though.
Do
Hey,
all
Bob.
do all three levels start at the same time, or are we starting like JV a week later, modified 3 weeks?
That was one of the, I know I saw that in your bulleted concerns. We are going to offer modified sports. That's in our plan. But we are going to begin them. We decided as a league to begin them 2 weeks later, which is pretty typical for a regular season. It still allows them to get their minimum number of practices in. It'll still allow them to play, I believe it was a 5-game season, even though there's only 5 schools that are a 5-game football season, a 8 or 10-game soccer season. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but yes, we're going to start later to help with the facility issues, and we're going to give them a reduced schedule like we're doing at the JV and varsity level based on their normal maximum number of games.
So modified actually is going to play game.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I thought it was only training or practicing. So
No. Right now we have scheduled for fall 2 and spring modified sports with a 2 weeks after the start of JV and varsity, modifieds would start, which is pretty typical.
Okay.
So we do.
Hey, Bob.
Yeah, Bill.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't see anybody. I'm driving at the same time, so I apologize. The question that I had with regard to field use is, I know that, Bill Schramm's done a good job of wiping off the fields. The thing that I have concern about is we're playing sports that we're not typically playing during the months of the year that they normally are played. So those fields start to get wet. What does soccer do to a field that may be used for a different sport later on? And how will we maintain, the integrity of those fields for the other sports? That's, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So you're talking primarily about the baseball outfield, both here at the high school campus and at Peter B. Baseball and softball outfield. We have the middle school soccer field, which we've cleared off already, that we can use for sub-varsity games if we need to put them on grass. I have no plans really to put them on grass until we get to a point where I feel like we're not going to tear them up and ruin them. Despite the middle school field is not used for any other sports other than soccer, but I still don't want to go up there and tear it up and then not have it be ready for play when we get to August and September in the fall, because we didn't use common sense and caution about playing on a grass field before it was dry enough and ready to play. I don't think officials would allow it either. If I schedule a game in the field that's that sloppy like that, they'll come and stop the game. So I would not.
No, I think
as long as we all understand.
I think my questions come from.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm talking to say. I think my questions come from is that we never really had a talk, and maybe you had a plan all along. Once they made a decision to go to three compressed seasons, how we were going to deal with it as an athletic department. So I think some of the concerns I had is that I just don't know what our plan is, and as we're getting ready to vote to move into these things, how it would impact fields, athletes, whatnot. But it sounds like you have stuff. It's just we haven't had a chance to talk about them.
I'll be 100% honest with you. It's fluid and it changes by the minute and it changes by the day depending on the weather. But yes, we've had discussions about all of these things and we have an alternate plan in place. What it may mean, and we try to avoid it as much as possible, is maybe playing a sub-varsity game on a Sunday afternoon. We try to avoid Sundays, obviously. Sometimes you can't play because of the 7-day rule. You can't play 7 straight days. That's been waived this year to allow for minimum practices and flexibility in scheduling. But there may be some strange times. What was normally a 4:15 modified game on a Tuesday or a Thursday, may become a 7:30 game under the lights because that's when the field is free and available for us to play it.
And in the midst of discussion about facilities, we kind of tackled quite a few discussions about athlete transition as well.
So we're early in the, we're early in the process right now. And ideally our cross-country team will be able to run outside. But indoor track and outdoor track in bad weather in the spring have sometimes come inside for training and specialties. And I don't know if that's going to be a possibility. That's going to be something that we have to discuss to get them out of bad weather. It's not it wouldn't be safe on a 35-degree day where it's a little bit of drizzly rain, those kids out running on the campus. So that's something that we may have to address as well, and how we control that and monitor that if we are going to allow them in the building to do some training.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any other questions?
I was just going to ask, we're 3 weeks into the start of sports back in RCS. What do you think has not gone well that you're incorporating into the next set of plans going into the winter sports?
I think the biggest problem for me has been trying to communicate even with the other schools in our league and having the communications get to the people that need it to get to. Bus drivers that have driven bus for 20 years at Voorheesville and have always dropped off in a certain spot at Ravena are creatures of habit, and they tend to drop off and then they let the kids off on the front curb and drive away to go have something to eat at the Ravena diner. And, the kids are stuck outside. So Brian developed a map for me because it's hard to explain how to get to that back parking lot. I now have a map that I'm going to share with all the ADs tomorrow. I will send it out to the officials assigners. The officials have come through the wrong door because out of force of habit, they've come through the same door every day. For the life of me, the first couple of weeks, I couldn't figure out why basketball officials were coming down the pool hallway. I thought all those doors would be locked, and then I realized that's the way that the wrestlers are getting into the building, so the door was unlocked for them, and the JV basketball game was starting before wrestling practice was over. So I started to lock that door, and now they're kind of stuck out there, and they have to find their way around to the back at this point. It's the communication piece, and getting that communication to all the people that are necessary has been the biggest challenge so far, I think. there's other little hiccups. We didn't plan for, the JV girls are waiting to go to a 5:00 game, which is an unusual start time because there's no varsity game, but there's a boys game going on in the gym. The first day they came in and were standing in the end of the gym. That's not a good situation. So we altered the plan to put them in the hallway adjacent to the gym. We've just made some minor adjustments to it to maintain the social distancing and keep kids separate and away from large congregations.
Bob and I met with all the coaches of Winter yesterday to review with them the updates to the preparedness plan that Dr. Lemons approved on Monday. And we'll also be meeting with all of the Fall 2 coaches when their season begins to review the things that they need to do.
Yeah, I was going to mention earlier, someone asked about, we have the sport-specific plans for the high-risk sports. They're in our preparedness plan. We purposely left out the moderate and low-risk sports plans. They do exist, and I will share them with the coaches so they can share them with the players and the parents. But that plan that had to go to Dr. Lemons is specific to the high-risk sports and the approval that she needs to make. So rather than muddy the waters, we left those sports-specific COVID plans out of that document. We do have documents for every one of the moderate risk sports that we're talking about playing, whether it be soccer or basketball or cross country, how competitions are going to look, what's going to change for officials. Those plans are all in place, and I'll share them with the coaches.
Okay. Bob, the one quick question I have for you with hiring is more or less, how do we help you? So, when you look at our coaching lists, obviously we have lots of nice big yellow spots. And it seems like hiring coaches is kind of like hiring bus drivers. We just cannot find them. So, I mean, I'm guessing, and I didn't look at the list that close, there's 6, 7 job openings. There's probably some of the positions that have been filled because you've done a pretty good job begging and pleading with people to take positions because we can't find people to do it. Is what do we need to do different to try to, find people to coach? I know in the past, we usually always relied on staff and people to do it. And it's part of the contract that staff gets, to be coaches first. But, do we need to advertise more? Do we have to just go find coaches? I mean, you got any thoughts or ideas on how we can try to fill these positions?
Yeah, I advertise in-house first. I usually give it about a week. In some cases, I get a resignation in the 11th hour, and I don't have a week to advertise it in the school. And then I reach out to Section 2, who can send a blast email out to all of the ADs and all of the other school districts. In some cases, you're able to find somebody who is on staff at, Voorheesville, but not coaching and is looking for a coaching position. The coaching position that they would fill is already filled at Voorheesville, and they're certified, and we pick up that kind of person. But it's gotten harder and harder. I don't know what the answer is, to be honest with you. When I first started 7 years ago or 6 years ago, there was exactly 3 non-faculty or staff coaches on the list. And now I think there's upwards of 17 or 18 on the same list of sports that we offer. So we're definitely delving out of the faculty and staff and more into the public domain to try and find certified coaches and people who are willing to coach.
I've got a suggestion for you. And this is not just for you, Bob. This is for the district. We need to make it a priority when we hire teachers, because we know that teachers make better coaches because they're there and they already build the relationships outside the coaching time. And they have the experience working with the kids. We need to make it a priority to hire teachers who want to coach. That's probably the top thing that got me the job when I started at Averill Park 23 years ago, was that not only was I coaching, but I was willing to coach, and that moved me to the top of the list. We need to pay attention to that when we bring people in and hire them for other positions. There are a lot of teachers out there looking now. So if we have more than one applicant, that should be asked, and that should help bump them up the candidate list.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. It's definitely something we have to, look at. Anything we can do to try to get, people for the job because it's a struggle. You can see it. There's, yellow spots, and we don't want to get into a situation where you can't have a team because you can't find a coach. Joanne was just looking for ideas on how to advertise. She wants to make commercials and make a videos, and I just figured we'd add it to our list of things to do.
Bus driver coaches. We could have bus driver coaches.
Yeah. We could double them up, have a bus driver and a coach together. It's good money doing both jobs, isn't it?
Yeah.
So now that's all I had for you. But I wanted to ask you, since we had it, and make it a point, since we're approving the coaches list, it just stinks that we have a lot of open jobs and they're hard to fill.
Oh, I know a guy that'll probably fill the modified baseball job, much to his wife's chagrin, should that remain open. But there are some, there's some open positions that even if I was willing to do them, I'm not qualified to do them. And
you can't be in 3 places at once.
I'll be scrambling around the district and the community and the section looking for suggestions and people who are willing to apply for those jobs.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? We're going to move on to the agenda.
I'm going to make one shameless plug before while Bob is going. It is our responsibility as a school district and as a community to encourage this sense of responsibility and volunteerism in the children that we have now. Our society and our culture has changed over the last 10 to 20 years. People are not volunteering for a lot of community-based organizations. Look at, all of them. Fire departments, police, churches, food pantries, and coaching isn't that different. The pay isn't extraordinary. You're doing it because you truly want to give back to your community. We need to make this a priority in what we're teaching our children before they leave us, and giving them the opportunities for volunteerism so that they see the value in it and how we give back to our communities. And then we make good teachers and we make good coaches, and whatever they do. They can go out and be a real estate agent as long as they're willing to give back in some way. So just a reminder of what we really need to be doing overtly. And the coaches that we have exemplify that.
Yeah,
They might even be able to come back and be a board member today.
Yeah, Brian, you didn't mention board member either.
Board members.
I just want to say thank you for approving the winter high-risk sports. Obviously, it was a completely different undertaking. There were some hiccups and glitches that I think we've gotten through, but I get to see the games here as the supervisor when I'm not running around doing things. And I've watched, my daughters and sons play on the live stream, and I see the kids in school and talk to them, and they're just ecstatic to be back on the court in any kind of capacity, or the mats or whatever it is that they're doing. They're thrilled. And I think the senior night last night was a great example of that for the girls. They were absolutely thrilled to be able to play together one more time.
You know what Kylie Shortell, the varsity girls basketball coach, said to me yesterday afternoon after our meeting, Bob? She said, honest to God, the girls are smiling behind their masks the whole time. They are so happy to be able to be playing. You can clearly see they are smiling behind their masks. I thought that was a real powerful message.
I think the announcer was a little emotional a few times also.
Yeah, he was. It's hard when they're around for 4 years. You watch them for 4 years. It's and then they write those kinds of speeches. I don't know. I think we need to find someone else to read them from now on. That's a little bit too tough for me.
Thank you, Bob. We really appreciate your time.
Okay. All right.
Brian,
we need Yep.
Whatever we decide tonight, ultimately, can you let me know? And are you going to send that document directly
to
Ed and Risa? All right. Can you just copy me on it as the chairperson?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Hold on. You're not going to watch the rest of the meeting?
I'm going to go down and sanitize chairs after the wrestling match ends.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Bye.
So we need a motion for one or all of the business considerations.
Make a motion for 6-1 through, let me see here. Let's go 6-1 through 6. Where are 9 and 10? Where the heck those go?
We have 10 and 11 are additions, right?
So which is the one we need to leave out? I wrote them down.
11 is fall sports. If we want to do roll call,
That's what we want to do roll call on. Yep. So let's go 6-1 through 6-10.
Okay.
Complain about that?
Yeah. Do we have a second?
Aye.
Mrs. Burns. Any discussion?
Yeah, a couple things. 6-6 and 6-7. Obviously, we say thank you because they're donations for the trumpet and for the money for the backpack program, even though it's anonymous. 6-8, I'm questioning it a little bit because it's a tax reduction, but it says no refund due. What is that? And I don't understand. If it's a reduction, why is there no refund due? And secondly, they're all 4 properties listed to Joe Bove, who died in 2018.
Well, then it's the estate of, so either one. But what I will tell you, as of those properties, there's no tax refund due because they didn't pay them at all. So it was re-levied. So we'll be getting, we'll get less from the county. They don't have to pay us. The county will give us less.
Okay.
And before you vote on 610, I wanted to note the instructional calendar reflects 3 things because we didn't go back and we didn't make the adjustments earlier in the year. Number one, we know that we used professional development days for the first 4 days of school, 5 days of school. So that's in there. We removed Regents exams in January because we didn't have them. But the most important one is our next large-scale vaccination of our staff is a week from tomorrow, which is March 11th. The last time we had a vaccination, we had 42 staff members out the following day. We know we have a professional development day on Monday. We're going to move our professional development half day to Friday, make it a completely remote day so that our staff that can be in attendance can professionally develop and it'll allow students to work from home and work remotely for a compressed day. So that's why we're moving our professional development day from Monday. That way, the following week, we just have 5 days of school, no changes at all. But we wanted to approve that in the calendar and then be able to get that out to families tomorrow morning.
Okay, that's fine. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Need a motion for 6-11.
I'll make the motion, 6-11.
I have a second. Mrs. Klein. Do we have any discussion? The one thing that I want to say about 6-11 is, one, I think it's been, the start of winter sports has been a lot like our school year. I think we've had a lot of bumps, bruises, a lot of learning lessons, and I think we've, learned and improved since then. So it's good to hear because I think, going into the next season, everything we've learned in winter will help us in, the fall. The other thing that makes this vote even more, I think is like Bob said, is when you watch a senior night and watch, the boys basketball senior night when it comes, or watch the wrestling senior night, because it means a lot to those girls. So that's it. That's all I got. So anybody else have any other discussion? Huh? Yeah, we are going to do roll call. Does anybody else have anything else they want to discuss?
Yeah, the only other thing I'd like to say is I think it may make sense in this compressed athletic year if we could have some sort of, if it's monthly check-ins, some sort of report out from the athletic office about how things are going, an opportunity to ask questions if there's questions, things like that. I think that would be beneficial.
How about Brian just put it in his news and notes every week?
That's fine.
Yeah, and I want to just echo Bill's sentiment from before about having the grandparents there. I wish we had thought of that sooner because last night would have been the time for us. But
Agreed.
I was channeling grandma.
Brian,
Sometimes-
oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I didn't ask, yeah, I should have asked Bob while he was still on. When will we be looking at that third season approval? What's that timeline, about 3 weeks from now?
There is no high risk for the third season.
Yeah, no high risk third season.
Okay, so it's only for high risk that they need to have this. Okay.
That's correct. We don't need to approve soccer. Soccer's a moderate risk sport that plays no matter what. It's not a board decision. It's just the high risk that has to be approved, and there's nothing in spring sports.
Yeah.
Right. RCS just has to choose to play in it.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Kristen, did you have something?
Just because sports has been just so crazy, maybe some more advertisement on our website or stuff so people do know that when they can go watch the senior nights and stuff like that, because I had no idea until like 5 minutes prior that it was the girls' senior night last night.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you right now, as of today, the boys basketball will be Monday night of next week, and the wrestling will be Wednesday night. And swimming is working on arranging something right now. Since we just got the guidance that they're allowed at all, the boys swimming is working on that.
Okay.
Thanks, Kristen. I'll make sure.
So we good?
We ready?
Yeah, go ahead, Sue.
Roll.
Okay. Mr. Reveley,
Yes.
Mr. Engel,
yes.
Mr. McFerrin,
Yes.
Mrs. Hilburns,
Yes.
Mrs. Holtailing,
Yes.
Mr. Ross,
Yes.
Mr. Heislip,
Yes.
Mrs. Shackleton,
Yes.
Mrs. Klein,
Yes.
Tracy. We got everybody? Kristen, you go?
That's it.
Okay. You got them all, Sue?
I got everyone.
All right. Motion passes. Thank you. I need a motion for one or all of the personnel considerations.
Motion for all.
Okay. Do we have a second? Mrs. Klein, do we have any discussion? Oh, no. Sorry. I was looking at my notes and the only thing I had was coach hiring process, which we already talked about. Okay. All in favor? We already did the motions, right?
Aye.
Aye. Motions pass. 8.1 and 8.2 are informational items only. 9.1, board president. I really don't have anything to report. The girls' senior night was very, very nice last night. I think they had a little video issue at the end, but all in all, it was very good and nice to see. Any other board members have anything to discuss? No?
Yeah, I think I just have a question about whether or not I know that the sports thing is wonderful, and I'm happy it's going as smoothly as it is. But is there any indication that we may see any other of our performers, music, band, choir at all by the end of the year?
That's really going to be down to the governor's updated guidance on social distancing and our ability to gather. Like I said, I think that that's coming out sooner than later. And I'll tell you, the music department, theater, there is no department that is, and PE is more affected by this than the social distancing than they are. Because at 12 feet, it takes an entire gymnasium to get 30 kids together to do something. And it's not feasible. So our fingers crossed within 2 to 3 weeks that we get updated guidance so they can make that difference. The other thing that's going to happen, Tina, is that we're going to meet as an operations committee on Monday to talk about after-school activities, how we safely conduct them within the schools and the current DOH guidelines, knowing that they're going to loosen up. So we're going to combine that. And you know what? We may not have a new plan by Monday, but we're going to try and establish an idea of when we get to this new plan, what are we willing to do? Our kids need it. They need it so badly. So we're really looking forward to some positive change.
So if we get to the point where the performances are allowed, are we prepared to live stream? Do we have the equipment? Do we have the people to do it? Do we know how to do it? Because I don't think there's going to be any chance of allowing spectators in to concerts and things like that. There just isn't room. But we want to make sure that we're prepared to live stream the second they say, okay, you can have a performance.
Yep. Barring copyright issues, we should be able to do that. We do it now for board meetings. We've come up with a plan how to do that. And we can apply the same strategies then. Right.
Could they have, which this is all going to be guidelines and everything as well as, could they have a concert outside, or is that like forbidden too? Could they have a concert at the football field and each get 2 guests or something, or is that against the rules?
It would still be a public gathering. So it would still be limited by the governor's orders. It's not a wedding. We know there's an exception for weddings, but everything else. We could hold a wedding at the concert and then get everything all at once.
We'll have to do some work for that.
Yes.
You don't want to renew your vows, Teddy?
Yeah, there's not a chance my wife's going anywhere on a camera. We have anything else, or we turn it over to Dr. Bailey? Dr. Bailey, you have anything?
Yeah, we've been talking about the issues, the student account access at Peter B. with our second grade families. And Fred and Bill Schramm, our resource officers, Mr. Jones, a classroom teacher, had a chance to meet with a number of families on Friday and talk through some of their most significant concerns. And it was an excellent conversation. And what it's really had us be reflective about, and what we're going to share out with the entire district is kind of a little improved planning around this new frontier that we're in. Everyone in the universe, everyone in this country, everyone in the state was in a rush to get students digital access so that they could do the learning they need to do in this bizarre setup that we have. But, through the conversations with the families, we talked about additional lessons for students around digital safety and security, password audits to ensure that we have rigorous enough passwords, refresher training for staff on what to do when they encounter traumatizing or threatening messages, increased benchmarks for how we're reviewing the software that we're using, reviewing our Dignity for All Students response plans. And most importantly, as a result of our inability to get the information that we need from this company we've been working with, we're going to discontinue our relationship with them for this component of the software that we're using. And what I mean when I say that is we really need to know who accessed what when. That's the way that you're able to conduct an investigation. They've not been able to provide that information, so we're going to discontinue our relationship with them for this component. That updated, basically our digital promise, our safety promise to families will be going out probably by Friday. There's a few people reviewing the communication now, and we'll be sending out to all families on Friday. Do you have any questions about that? We are required by law to test all of the potential fixtures in a school building that could issue drinking water. It's lead testing, right? Each year. Every school district is required to do it. You've seen what's happened in large-scale areas like Michigan, where there have been cataclysmic things that happened within public water. School districts are required to do that. We just released our lead water testing results to the community, and it was only for Peter E. Becker and the middle school. The reason is the buildings have to be occupied for a certain amount of time before the testing can occur. And it takes a long time to do testing because it's every faucet, every water fountain. And we haven't done the high school yet. But there were a number of problem areas identified. I wanted you to know our first wave is to clearly label those areas to say, do not drink and high lead content. The second layer of intervention is to go in and do remediation, such as replacing the external fixtures or piping or other components of the water system. But I just wanted you to know, because we put that out there and it looks like RCS has lead in the water. Every school district does.
Yeah, Brian, don't we do this test every year?
That is correct.
Every 2 years?
Every year.
All right. I mean, I know in the past we've had to change a faucet here or a faucet there, so it seems like it's something that can definitely change over time. I'm guessing the levels.
I think it was like, I may be not quite accurate. There might have been 3 places in the middle school, 7 places in Becker, and 2 places in Peter B. It wasn't a whole lot, but it was enough that it would require targeted remediation for us. But it's scary to say we have lead, and we're required to issue that statement to all families. I just wanted to let you know why that's out there.
Brian, is there an impact because the water hasn't been used the same capacity it normally would? Less students, longer periods of time of it sitting. Does that affect those readings somewhat?
It absolutely does, and we're required to test it at a time when the building is occupied, but it has been allowed to sit for a length of time. And we know exactly right. Every single one of our pipes starts from the main pipe, which may be a 6-inch pipe, and goes down and down and down all the way to the end. We're not using the water anywhere near as much. The water is used every time we turn on a faucet or flush the toilet. It's not being used anywhere near as much. So those concentrations are likely higher specifically because of that. And when you look at the results, I think the threshold is 0.02 parts per million. Almost all of them are like just a little bit above the threshold, with the exception of 2 or 3 of them. I mentioned at our last meeting that I'd be participating in Legislative Lobby Day last week, and I met with representatives from Breslin's office, Assemblyman Steck, Teague, McDonald, Fahey, and Tedisco. And the focus of the conversation was the governor's proposal for block grants. We've talked before about what the proposal is for the New York State subsidizing school funding with federal monies. That's all well and good for this coming year, but when the federal money dries up, it's going to leave a huge vacuum in the state money, and schools are going to be at a financial precipice. So we're encouraging our legislators to be thinking more longitudinally about how to use this money effectively. And the other thing around a block grant means that they're combining BOCES aid, transportation aid, special education aid, all their high-cost aids into one lump sum, including STAR, which has never been included in this conversation. It is not going to play out well for our school districts. So I'm going to share with you at our next meeting, not this one because of our time constraints. I wanted to share with you our BOCES snapshot for this past year. I'm not going to share at this meeting, but it exemplifies why not going to block grants is so important. We have 67 students involved in CTE right now. We are reimbursed 46% of those costs. We have seven students in specialized special education programs. We're reimbursed for 46% or more for those programs. Plus, we use them for professional development. We use them for software, for digital support, other supports. The proposal means that the $1 million that we're going to get next year might not be there when we need it most. That is a lot of money for our taxpayers to have to make up. So, important conversation with our legislators. And lastly, I want to talk about our seniors. We're 4 months away from graduation. We did our first senior night for athletics last night. There are so many things that our seniors need that they're not getting. Just think of normal social interaction that our seniors are not getting. So the class advisors, some representatives of the senior class and the high school leadership have been meeting since September to think of creative plans around how we celebrate our seniors. They launched a webpage this week, which encapsulates the things that we hope to do. In other words, We need updated guidance from New York State and the Department of Health, the things we have planned to do, which we think will fit into it, and the things that we've already done. And that was also sent in a letter to families this week. But something really amazing and touching is this morning, one of our staff members, Trish Grogan, has been working with senior class and Dr. Paterni and Mr. Tedford on creating an Adopt a Senior program. I sent it out to our district staff today. They adopted, out of the 150 or so seniors, there's like 3 names that haven't been adopted yet, and they did that in about 6 hours. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a gift bag, a care package for our kids with inspirational messages, some small gifts, maybe some gift cards to really cheer on the seniors. But I got to say, looking at that list fill up, I sent it out, and literally in the first hour, half of it was full. By the second hour, 2/3 of it was full. And by the end of the day today, all but 3 or 4 kids. It is amazing. Our staff are amazing. So, and Fred's going to show that piece of the website during his segment. But, you know, we don't have much time to celebrate the work that they're doing, and we're excited to do so. So thank you.
Okay, Mr. Engelhardt.
And I'm going to share a screen with you tonight. I decided just to put everything kind of in a quick little PowerPoint. So the community library is, for the month of March, second year in a row partnering with our art department. So there will be a digital photography show. We will make sure that that is on our website. This is an annual show. They're already booked for next year as well. And it started last March. Our Senator Michelle Hinsky, I think is how you say her last name, launched Valentine's Seniors Card Drive. So Miss Barry, who's our social worker at Peter B., took this project and ran with it. So we had a bunch of our Peter B. students who participated in this event, and they sent Valentines to senior citizens. So we appreciate all of the work they did on that. I wanted to give some feedback regarding clubs. I did send out a survey. I had about 13 clubs give me some feedback. Here's the list that got back to me. This is not exhaustive of the clubs that are running right now, just the ones who were able to give me some feedback since last week. And then I just grabbed some of the student responses as well. So I'll let you kind of look at those. I know, Mr. McFerrin, you're in the car, but I'll send this to the board after. This picture is from our Students Against Drunk Driving Club. And they are taking their message to school campus this past week, and I think this coming week as well, reminding families to rock the belt. So it's encouraging good seatbelt wearing practices. So keep an eye out for them. Some other quotes from our students. I think the questions I asked were around the likes and dislikes of clubs right now, ways they could improve it. Obviously, the dislikes overwhelmingly was that students couldn't meet in person, and they really wanted to. But most of them did share their appreciation for the time to connect with each other and their teachers. And for those who are doing things like SAD or the environmental club, those humanitarian clubs, they really appreciated the fact that they could still do projects for their community and were able to connect with their community. So that was great for them to be able to share some of that. I have a lot more feedback if anyone wants to dive into that a little bit more deeply. I did look at trends in attendance for those that I had. This is, I think it's class of 2022. They are meeting virtually. Most attendance is between 10 and 15 members. Are some of our music and I think maybe one of our science Olympiads are way over 20. And then we have a couple that are creeping up from single digits to double digits. And we see those kind of creep up from the beginning of the start of the clubs. Depending on when they meet, obviously as well, plays a huge effect on their attendance. Those that were meeting weekly had a little bit more of a stronger attendance than those who aren't. So we'll keep monitoring the attendance for our club, but even though it's not ideal, It's giving them the outlet to connect. I think one of the things we had mentioned is, we're doing a lot through Google Meet. When we're done, we get to click and we're done. Well, this allows them at least some space and some time to connect with their peers. And several of them mentioned just the time to be able to talk to their teacher and a way that they haven't during classroom time. So we thought that was a good thing for us to look into clubs a little bit more. I know Mrs. Burns already mentioned this. We are going to put this on our website. There's that scrolling piece that I'll show you in a second, where we kind of have some dates. So we'll try to put some of these important dates on our website so that the public is more aware. I'll go to that now. So here's our website. You'll see where we have these events in the middle. A lot of them they postponed. Not happy. So we want to make sure that we have events on there that actually celebrate the things that we are doing. So we'll work with Mr. Meadow on that. From our last meeting, some feedback from the board was around posting our code of conduct. So it is here with a Google survey for families. We'll keep that up until our next board meeting and look at that. And then Dr. Bailey mentioned the recognition page. So if you click on this link, also over here in the live feed, there are links as well, but this is the one I'm always drawn to. You'll see there's a recognition page for our seniors. And it brings you to that list of the chart that Dr. Bailey talked about, the things that they're planning to do. So in March, they're in progress of planning a bowling night at Dell Lanes, and then some things that they are hoping to do as well. We have some of our featured articles that we've had over the last several months, and then some pictures as well. So feel free to push folks towards this page. We think it's a great way for us to celebrate our seniors throughout these months. And that's all I have. Any questions?
Fred, did they ever wrap up the conversation about yearbooks? What did we end up deciding on? And did we wrap up everything from last year? I know there were still some kids that were waiting for them at the start of this year from last year.
I honestly don't know, Tina. I can look into that and find out where we are on that. I'm not sure around, I know that the yearbook committee is meeting, but I don't know the conclusion of that. I'll share it at our next meeting.
Tina, I can speak to the seniors. I know the seniors have ordered and paid for their yearbooks. I don't know if there are yearbooks for, everyone, because I know we said that it was kind of tough to get material, like pictures and things like that of things that have happened over the year because nobody's actually been in school that much. But the seniors are trying to put something together. So I know that for sure.
And I can reach out to the other yearbook committees as well for next week or next board meeting.
So Yvonne, what would be contained in a yearbook? Would it just be the pictures of seniors and their future plans?
Well, the student activities committee has been, and the advisors have been asking seniors and senior families just to, flood them with all kinds of pictures, like, pictures of stuff they've done this year, pictures of when they were little, and they were putting out some kind of fun things like all seniors send us pictures of you and your pets, and things like that. So they're really trying to come up with creative sort of things to put on there.
So Brian or Fred, based on that, which sounds wonderful, would we have, or those advisors have a plan for, say, seniors who may not have overly involved families so that they are getting kind of an experience with this also?
Well, I'll say that our baseline has been for every event that is supposed to involve the entire class is that's a non-negotiable. You have to figure out a way to involve everyone in the class. They know that is something that they've got to work around, but I know exactly what you're saying, that not everybody, that is the number one complaint of the yearbook staff as well. They send out solicitations for baby pictures or pictures of activities outside of school, and they just don't get the response that they need. So I can't speak to exactly how they're resolving it, Tina, but I'll let you know that I won't accept anything other than that, other than participation from everybody.
Okay. Mrs. Moran, I know you've used most of your allotted time tonight, but do you have anything else to include?
Oh, no, I've got quite a bit. No, just kidding. I just have a couple things I'd like to touch base on very quickly. I won't make it a long thing. I do want to say that the Finance and Audit Committee, we did meet. Thank you very much. We discussed the results, our corrective action plan for the audit by the Office of the State Comptroller. Again, that's a heavy lift. We already started our process, which was to implement some of the training things we're going to do with the building leaders. It's going to take a while. We are now going to have training with all the advisors and the student treasurers. That's going to be something. It's going to have to be a mandatory thing. If everybody knows, we have exceptions on the extra classroom fund every single year and every audit we do. We have a lot of work to do. We'll keep everybody posted. Saving Grit, we didn't have as much fundraising this year, so this will be an okay year, I would hope. But we have a lot of work to do from the administrators, from the advisors, from everything. So we're working on that. That has to be turned in to the Office of the State Comptroller by Friday, which what we will do. March 5th, it has to be turned in. And not that I hate to say anything against what Dr. Bailey might say, but water testing is not an annual thing. It is, we did it in 2016. We did it we were supposed to do it. It's nothing that we're doing wrong. We're told by the Department of Health how often to do it. I don't want someone to think we haven't done what we were supposed to. The next time we were supposed to do it was 2020. It was postponed due to the pandemic. We're doing it now, and then every 5 years or sooner as determined by the Department of Health. And I want you to know, last time we did it in 2016, Mr. DeMonico was in charge of that. We had more exceptions then. We were better this year, go around, and we did correct everything from last year. We have to keep taking test samples until we're done. We're in the middle of everything that we could think, whether it be pandemic related, budget related, anything in HR related. We are busy, but that's all I have. I don't want to keep anybody any later.
I just want to record for the record that my standards are higher than New York State.
Thank you. And good. One thing I was thinking of, Mrs. Moran, is we had some very good presentations tonight and very impressive. Some of those things we have to dial back a little bit. We don't need the word getting out in the street sometimes. Too many good things going on. People. We don't need our people getting poached around here, I guess.
I got it.
It's kind of the point I'm making here. Got to keep our secrets to ourselves sometimes. Anybody have any new business? No? Old business, we're going to add the solar panels to old business. Anything else we want to discuss in old business? Okay.
Yeah, could we add last time Ms. Moran added the commercial possibility for hiring? So what other options has she come up with, or what other options could we do? Obviously, we have a lot of gaps, including obviously now coaching, right? We can add to that. So.
Hiring on old business. We'll just put hiring process in old business.
Exactly.
All right, no problem. Yep.
Just so we keep it on the back of our mind. Audit committee minutes are attached. We have no policy adoptions. We do have a hearing and petition, correct? We still have the hearings and petition?
Correct. We have Ashley Bienvenu, who wants to address the board about senior recognition and garnering support from the district around that topic. So I'll call Ashley in, and I will also, I'll put up the hearings and petitions document, Teddy, so you can read it to her. What I was always mortified of is calling the wrong person. I got the right number. I got this. Ashley, you're there?
Yes.
Hi, you're on with the Board of Education. Our board president, Mr. Reveille, is going to read a quick description of how hearings and petitions work, and then we'll allow you to address the board. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you for being patient. I told her between 7:30 and 8:30, and here we are at 9 o'clock. She probably did extra homework while she was waiting.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Ashley. So just a couple of quick notes. Hearings and petitions section will be limited to no more than 30 minutes. Comments from each individual are limited to 3 minutes. Topics which fall properly under executive session will not be discussed in public session, including comments about individual students or personnel. Although comments will be directed to the board, a member of the district staff will respond to the petitioner after the Board of Education meeting, if and when appropriate. So those are the guidelines we'd like to follow, and we will turn it over to you.
Thank you. So good evening, everyone. My name is Ashley Bienvenu, and I am the Class of 2021 Student Council President. I'm here today to discuss the issues the seniors are facing because of the coronavirus pandemic. Since March of 2020, the Class of 21 seniors have lost everything that makes a senior year special. We have lost proms, social interactions, spirit weeks, sporting events, music concerts, drama performances, homecoming, and even things as little as seeing your lifelong friends in the hall. When the surprise of the pandemic first hit last spring, the district focused and prioritized the Class of 2020 seniors. Parents, community, and staff jumped in to make the experience for those seniors as best as possible given the circumstances. They had caravans, a Jericho driving graduation, a recorded graduation, an in-person graduation, signs, adopted senior gifts, and parades. No one deserves to lose the most memorable experiences of high school. However, the Class of 2020 only lost 4 months of their senior year. The Class of 2021 is yet to have one normal day of school, and with the exception of a small caravan that traveled around the district, there have been no opportunities for the class to assemble for an entire year. When you think back to your high school years, specifically junior and senior year, what do you think of? Prom, sports highlights, socializing in the halls, or most importantly, the feeling of celebrating all that you worked for and accomplished with your friends and family by your side. It should be the most memorable years of your primary education. Now I ask you to try and reimagine a junior and senior year without any of those memories. Replace them with being stuck at home without a choice, staring at your computer all day, processing digital presentations, sitting in the same room alone, watching the year fade away and slowly losing that hope. That is what our year has become over the last 12 months. There comes a point where the question we need to ask ourselves is, how much are we willing to pay to ensure there is zero risk? In 2020, the Mental Health America website stated New York alone ranked number 5 in the country with 11.46% of adolescents suffering from depression. The New York State Education Department has even issued special guidance for the Class of 2021 to inform districts of the importance of seniors' mental health. Yet, as of February 2021, Governor Cuomo stated on the official New York State website, only 1.1% of all coronavirus tests in New York State are positive. He also stated, we have the lowest infection rate of any big state in the nation. We understand the pandemic is a contagious virus, and I understand we need to be cautious with how we plan activities by following health guidelines for everyone's safety. But right now, we seem to be unequally prioritizing infection rates over depression rates. With that being said, my fellow council members, advisors, Dr. Paterni, and I have been working since March of last year to come up with creative and safe ways to keep up student morale. We have lists of ideas waiting to be put into action, such as prom, senior Fridays, bonfires, tailgating, luncheons, and so much more. We have requested many meetings with our district administration to advance these ideas into actual scheduled events. But due to an avoidance mentality, we haven't been able to do anything except wait for approval or in some cases hope for a response. I believe every problem has a solution, and I'm willing to find those solutions to help my fellow seniors who are suffering. Reluctance to finding solutions, in my mind, is completely unacceptable. For example, not allowing a tent or food trucks outside in June with masks and social distancing because it is considered indoors is completely absurd. Our incredible advisors, Ms. Passman and Ms. Risco, have done everything they're capable of doing to help the seniors. But I need your help to see it through. We need to be prioritizing the seniors like we did for the class of 2020 by putting our energy into supporting the safe, creative experiences we have on our list. Our administration has allowed high-risk sports, yet are reluctant to find easy ways to help with seniors' mental health. I'm aware of the need for sports and how that helps with morale and social interaction because I, too, am an athlete. However, I've been asked time and time again by our administration for more ideas. While we have come up with countless ideas, none of them matter if they get rejected, postponed, or canceled. I'm not asking for things to be completely normal, and I know we can't change the past, but I strongly request the board's support with helping to ensure we receive assistance from all levels of the school administration. It is no longer acceptable to deny every idea we come up with because of the fear of a possible bad reputation. My presence before you today is evidence of how I am willing to fight for the senior class. I am asking you to do the same. I am here to let you know the truth of what is going on and to communicate to you directly, rather than hoping you get the correct message after it goes through a line of people. I am not discounting the other issues in the education system we are dealing with from the pandemic. I am confident everyone will return to a normal traditional life next year, but that doesn't help take the pain away from losing everything this year. Every other student before and after the class of 2021 will have some form of a traditional senior experience, except for us. There are only a few months left, and I would hate to see the class of 2021 leave feeling defeated because the people at RCS who were capable of making a difference didn't. Thank you.
Ashley, thank you for coming on to our meeting and reading your letter and your speech. It was very good, and it has definitely been a trying year for all of your fellow classmates and yourself. So hopefully, within any kind of guidelines and possibilities, we'll be able to help you guys out for the remainder of this year. I'm sure Dr. Bailey and Dr. Paterni will, reach out to you and work with you and your class to do whatever we possibly can.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you, Ashley.
I will note that just as a follow-up, we talked a little bit about seniors before. When we're in doubt, we call the Department of Health and ask them because there's so many rules out there. It's like navigating shark-infested waters with your eyes closed and covered in bacon. And we call the Department of Health and ask them because we want to push the envelope. Things it's the right reason to push the envelope, so it's good.
It is for sure. Thank you. Upcoming activities. Our next BOE meeting will be March 17th. I believe, we are still remote, at least for one more meeting, correct? Is that what we have, one more meeting? Or until extended? When it comes to remote?
Mid-March right now or until it's extended.
Okay, great. No need to go into executive session. So the most famous line is a motion to adjourn. Mr. Engel, Mrs. Klein, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Yeah.
Aye.
March 17th. I'm not going to make the next meeting.
Wow.
It's a
Is
special
it
day.
inappropriate to have like some sort of happy hour?
You're muted again.
She's going to have to complete a homework assignment.
Probably on vacation again.
It's St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. What do you mean on vacation? Yes, I am.